Leading ladies, good morning. And to the gentlemen in the room, lucky you. So I just want to take 10 minutes at most before I join Yawa. And it's because I want to tell you my story and hope that you can understand how the journey to prominence goes. Something you don't know about me, the secretary to the cabinet was my roommate in Hall 12. Why didn't you stay on Parkland's campus? I will never understand. She walked to Parkland's every day because she studied law. And back in the day, we knew we were looking for big things, but we didn't know what it would look like. So when I first walked into the studio, I was a banker before I was a broadcaster. Well, I did econ and maths. You can ask my roommate. When I walked into that studio at KISS 100 as the first female at 25 years later, as a morning host, radio host, I had no idea what prominence was, what it really meant. All I knew was the mic is on, a million or so people are listening, and there's really no room to hide, so you get on with the job. So overnight, I went from being a voice in training to being a voice the whole country is waking up to. And then you begin to realize that a microphone is a privilege. And the fact that anybody would even wake up and listen to you is actually a responsibility. And that was my baptism by fire, my crash course in what it means to be visible. Because prominence can also be defined as visibility. And let me tell you, visibility is not just light, it's also heat. Because when we think prominence, we think, oh, spotlight. Yes, it's light, but it's also heat. And it will test your confidence, it will test your values and your sense of self. So when I saw today's theme, Prepare for Prominence, I smiled because prominence doesn't just happen. You don't stumble into it. And if you do, it will eat you alive. I want to tell you that here and now. Prominence must be prepared for because it's built. Often it's built quietly. Long before the spotlight even finds you. And you build it quietly by everything you do today. And somebody once asked me, how do you talk like that? Why do you read like that? And it took me a while to realize it starts at home, it starts at school, because you read. I'm a Catholic girl. You're like, well, you'll do the second reading in church. Okay, you go up and you get it done. And you constantly learn how to be able to handle a microphone and know how to look at your notes and look up. It is something you build over time. So the first thing you will do is do the work. And I remember my first months on air at KISS, people only heard the jokes, the debates, the fire. What you never saw was 4 a.m. And 4 a.m. is not pretty. It's tough. For 17 years, I went to bed latest by 9:30. Because you cannot wake up at 4 and be articulate and sharp. And remember, an audience requires you you can't honestly come with your half-baked ideas and expect people to be listening to you at 6 in the morning. Nobody sees the research that I have to devour, the constant practice to sound sharp, to sound prepared, to be able to deliver every single message within a minute and 30 seconds. Because there was a time, all there was timing. And you've got to be able to understand that a clock is 24 hours, is exactly 60 minutes. So in those 60 minutes, you've got about 12 minutes of advertising. And then there's another 20 minutes of music. And what's left behind is where you come in. And remember, part of that is also commercial airtime. So literally, I'm the sort of person who will sit and say, because this will be 2 minutes long, this will be this will be this. You'll introduce the next song, and then you'll go into the news, or you'll introduce the next item, then you'll do the client comment, and then and then take a phone call. Nobody sees that. And so doing the work is something you've got to be ready for. Just by show of hands, how many of you here have been told, oh, you make it look so easy when you do your job? Yet they haven't seen the hours of preparation, the late nights, the early mornings, the 2 a.m. I mean, I don't know about you, but I sleep with a notebook next to my bed because sometimes something will occur to me when I want water and I'll have to jot it down because it'll be gone by 6. But nobody sees that. And that's the part where there's no clapping. But that's where prominence is built. And that's the first truth about prominence. You must do the work. You must actually hone your craft. You must be absolutely clear about what it is you represent when you stand up. And what Yawa made us all do to be able to introduce ourselves was literally what you did. In that moment, you were prominent. Because you told us about you, you told us what we don't know about you, and to the ladies who use a firearm well, please can we get together, because so do I. I haven't been to the shooting range in about a year, but so do I. But prominence is the work you will put in. It's the first truth about it. So when the doors open, you don't hesitate, you don't flinch. You walk through ready. Prominence is about, without preparation, is a performance. And it doesn't work. Prominence with preparation is power. The other thing you have to be very clear about is owning your story. The second part, after you've done the work, is preparing for prominence, is owning your story, yours, not the one people will tell about you. Because if you don't, someone else will write it for you, and they will not write it well or kindly. Yawa already told you. You Google some things about me and you're like, do I want to be around her? But remember, for the longest time, and especially as a woman, I was 25. I mean, when I looked at the young lady who's on her gap year, I thought, oh my goodness. I was 25. I had this huge platform. And then there's the way I sounded, and then there's the way I was, and there's the way I articulated things. So I cannot tell you how tired I got of hearing, two terms about me: that I'm arrogant and I am controversial. I'm not controversial. I have never said anything you didn't think. I just said it out loud. Everything I said when I was on air, you were thinking it. It's just that the minute I said it out loud, you're like, oh, Caroline. But you must own your story. And I'll share this with you. When I first got on radio, the story that they told about me wasn't written by me. Some said I was too bold, too aggressive, too much. Actually, I was a lot. But then again, I'm also a convent girl. I'm a Loreto girl. I was not raised any other way. So I realized, no, it's not me to lean into how you think I need to be. You need to understand I was raised like this. And Mercy said, you need to be ready. I came like this. I didn't know any other way. 12 years, one school. And when I tell people about me, they squint a little. I'm like, have you met my people? They're Justice Njoki Ndungu. It's Wangare Mathai. It's Gladys Cholet. We are Loreto girls. We don't know any other way to be. We're coming and we're not going anywhere. So lean into it. We'll wait, but we're not leaving. And of course, there were those who said she's lucky. I mean, it won't last, apparently. And now, if I'd let those voices define me, I'd have shrunk. So I learned to write my own narrative. I claimed my space, which you must do. I stopped apologizing for being loud, opinionated, and challenging, because that's what makes me. Okay? And I didn't understand why you didn't want us to challenge things. A lot of what we enjoy as women today was created by women who challenged stuff. It was Wangari, it was Martha Karua, it was Charity Ngilu. Those women were the ones who made sure we could be gathered here today without anybody asking, Munenda wapi, where are you going? To be with who? Other women, to do what? Because that's what their lives were like. And my audience needed that of me. They might not have wanted it, because there's some people probably sat in their cars and sat in the matatu like, ouch, did she say that? Or did she just call the cabinet minister in charge of whatever and ask him what's happening with the porthole on? That's what I used to do. And here's the lesson. Listen, when you don't define yourself, the world will misdefine you. And you've got to be very clear. Mercy said, call yourself to a summit. The other day, and for the women I now mentor, I'm like, have you had your summit? And Pinky Galani, who does an amazing event once a year called What Women Want, she calls me, she tells me, what am I going to do next year? I was like, have you had a summit? And she actually sent me a picture. She said, I have checked into a hotel. I am here for the day. This is my tea. This is my coffee. You must often call yourself to order. Preparing for prominence means sharpening your voice and deciding what you stand for before you ever step onto a stage. Now, prominence also requires you to make room for others. And this is my third truth. First, you will do the work. Then you will own your story, you will define it. And then you'll make room for others. Prominence isn't about being seen, it's about pulling others into the light with you. And too often, and I'm not worried about the women in this room, but I do know as I was coming up, there was that case of, why would you share the spotlight? It doesn't diminish. It doesn't. I've never understood why anybody thinks, no, but that will take away from me. That's silly. In fact, in that case, the spotlight is only on you and it will dim. I think often about the women who never got the microphone, who never got the seat at the table. What was the point of me being first if I was also going to be last? What is the point? So over the years, I've made it my mission to mentor younger women, but also just women in the same space as I am. I do not have a problem. Come to me and say, there is this thing, I can't see the other side of it, and I'm happy to sit with you. I amplify other women, African brands. I use my platform not only for me, but for others. Because it's pointless for you to have the spotlight and then you become the first woman, whoever, and the first, and then you're also the last. What a small world that would be. Take a moment. Think of one younger woman, a colleague, a friend, hi Jemima, who would benefit from you pulling her forward. And Jemima knows, she was head of HR at Radio Africa, technically my boss, but then again, you can't run me. But Jemima knows that when she was having a hard time, when she couldn't see around the corner, I'll tell her, breathe. Okay? Because it's one thing to run an organization with regular people, and then when you manage talent, oh, you have no idea. Prima donnas extraordinaire, but I'm famous. Yeah. But the microphone isn't yours. If you leave here, you leave the microphone behind. So sometimes when she couldn't say the hard things, I would say them for her. And when you think about a woman, a colleague, a friend who could benefit from you pulling her forward, kicking and screaming, by the way, because sometimes we can see the greatness in another woman and she's like, no, I don't like those things. Which ones? You pull her kicking and screaming. And that's because prominence is not just about what you achieve, it's about who you bring along. Okay, prominence that ends with you dies with you. Prominence that lifts others outlives you. You want to ensure that long after you're gone, long after you're done, they'll still say your name in rooms. I used to think, and I remember when I came off air in 2014, I was like, okay, finally, I can just be me. I met my girlfriends for lunch, so I was like, it was my last show on air. And of course, from the car park to the restaurant, I still got stopped. And somewhere in my head, I thought, once the headphones go down, the microphone goes off, I'll become a normal person. No. 20-something years later. And then I realized if you actually use your voice, your presence, your space, your intellect well, it doesn't matter when the microphone goes off. It really doesn't matter. You continue to be a presence, and it's crucial you do that. So let me bring it together. Preparing for prominence isn't about chasing the spotlight. The spotlight is very fickle. Okay? It will love you today and turn on you tomorrow. Preparing for prominence is about building a foundation that will carry the weight of when the visibility comes. Okay? Whereas Jemima lifts weights, which means, and so do I now. But then again, I'm 50. I'm in my 50s. If I don't lift weights, there's problems. We start getting up from seats like this. Okay? But the truth is, if you lift the weight, it does the work on your bones, on your structure. Preparing for prominence is about building a foundation that carries the weight of visibility. The work that makes you competent, the story that makes you authentic, the generosity that makes your impact lasting. Because prominence isn't a prize, it's a responsibility. And I wanted to leave you with a challenge. What's the point of me being here if I don't challenge you? The world doesn't need any more women who look good under the spotlight. We all know how to do the contour, doesn't matter. There's a YouTube for it. It needs more women who are unshakable when the spotlight turns harsh. Okay? So don't chase the prominence, prepare for it, build the substance and the story and strength so that when it finds you, you will not only rise, but you'll lift others with you. And this is my clear challenge. I need you to begin to own narratives that can only be ascribed to you. Now, those of you who are not visiting, who are actually, it matters, across the continent. I was approached by somebody who said, we're wondering whether you will speak at our first ever dyslexia conference in Africa. And I was like, sadly, your dates don't match with mine. I'll be away. I asked, what are you doing? They said, well, we want to start the conversation dyslexia in Kenya. I said, what do you mean? It's never been had? I was told no. In fact, Africans don't believe there's such a thing as dyslexia. They don't believe that neurodivergency occurs. And it's very hard. It's hard on teachers. It's hard on parents. I said, okay, leave it with me. They said, but we don't have a budget. I said, no, I haven't asked you for a shilling. And for me, it's the fact that I started a conversation just where I was. Sitting in my office, I usually have a Nikon, the tripod stand and the microphone. And it forced mainstream media to have the conversation. KTN had to do something on it. I believe there was a full opinion ed in the nation about it, and it will continue. I need you all to pick a thing. This is how prominence works. You pick a thing and you run with it. I'm about to start a very interesting and uncomfortable conversation about education, because I'm worried about what the future of work looks like if education today does not match up. But my prominence is built on the fact that I take a cause and I run with it. And then you know me for it. Those of you who are about the same age as Mercy and I remember when I first started the sanitary towel conversation. Nobody talks about that. Caroline, what are you talking about? And being a private school brat, I did not know that there are girls in this country who go to school and cannot go to school because they don't have a sanitary towel. There's a problem with the fact that, I went to private school for 12 years and then I went to the University of Nairobi and I hang out with Mercy. And when you're from Nairobi, you make out, 0.0000001% of the population at the campus. So by the time, the issue of the fact that girls missed school because of menstruating was put on my table, I went with it. I ran with it. I ran with it all the way until I made an enemy of Dr. Nyikal, because I remember Jockey Ndongo is the one who helped me move and this is the other thing, find a thing and hold it until it works. Okay? Because I remember when we were having the conversation and I was making sure that you guys understand what I'm doing with Procter & Gamble, we're doing donations, and Jockey looked at me and she asked me, what's the problem? I said, girls don't have sanitary towels. She said, no, that's not the problem. What's the problem? And I said, I don't know. She said, leave it with me. And she comes back to me two weeks later. At the time, she was a nominated member of parliament. And she said, your problem is in treasury. I said, what are you talking about? She said, sanitary towels are grouped under luxury goods, along with cognac, brandy, cigars, and Mercedeses. Yes, they were luxury products. And she said, you need to get the VAT removed. And that's where we started. And I still tell Kewapa to this day, dare they ever wake up and I see we're being taxed to menstruate, I will campaign against every woman, and I have the space, because I'm not going to watch it. Jockey got it taken out and we moved on. But then she told me, but you can't stop here. You got to find a way. You got to legislate. You got to find a way to ensure that girls in rural areas can get access to sanitary towels. She told me, your job is to write to the Ministry of Health and ask them to assign a section of their budget to the provision of. And I wrote to Charity Ngilu at the time, and her PS was Dr. Nyikal, who wrote to me and told me all their money was tied up in HIV and AIDS prevention. And because I was young, I wrote back to them and I told them that sex is elective and menstruation is mandatory. They're making no sense. Charity Ngilu didn't talk to me for about 3 years. But the thing is, and then I wrote to the Ministry of Education and I said, make a provision, and I know they tried to do it. And then later on, when Raila was Prime Minister, I put it on his table and he asked for it to happen. And then we moved again and we asked for it to be put in law. And finally, I think it was signed by Uhuru Kenyatta in 2017. I'd been walking with that thing for 10 years. For 10 years. And then, because I will not only walk with one thing, I need to pass on the baton. And this is the thing about us women. You've got to learn to do this. It's a relay. I'm not going to slow down, but you must catch up with me. Because I will pass it on, and that's what Kina Janet Bogwa are doing. And I'll go to other things. Where's my Kenya care policy, Mercy? It's coming. The care policy for me is crucial because the work of women and girls is not recognized. We act like the work that women do is free. But the minute somebody else has to do it, we pay. So how do we act like women are free labor? It's a problem. I don't want to get started. Yawa is going to throw me off stage. But this is why I say when it comes to prominence, this is my challenge to you, you must find where you lend your voice to authentically. And then you do the work. Because if you do the work, it's the muscle building. And when the spotlight finds you, it finds you ready. Because remember, prominence is not a nice thing to have. It's a responsibility. But it also comes with not just light, but with heat. Thank you very much.
So, first of all, thank you for these remarks, and thank you for telling a bit of your story, your journey. You know, one of the things that I want to start off with is where you ended. You talked about taking a cause, seeing it through, carrying it for 10 years, and trying to find someone to take the baton, to give the baton to. You know, a mentor told me a few years ago that passion is good, but strategy is better. Passion is good, but strategy is better, because at the time he was looking at the work that I was doing, passionate about women, but you have no strategy. Can you talk about who and how you've become strategic? Do you have mentors speaking in your ear? Do you have counselors? Are you being coached? Because there's so many women who introduce themselves as early stage in their career. And I'd love for them to see you, not just as a finished product, but also as someone who's submitted themselves perhaps to process. So can you give us a bit more flavor to your process and who's played a role in making you who you are today?
Okay. Wow, that's a really good question. So I'll start with something you all said. We are the 5 people, we're the average of the 5 people we hang out with. It is not a mistake that my former roommate is secretary to the cabinet. It isn't. These are my people, this is our DNA, this is how we are. So I'll start with, at school, who are the girls I hang out with? When I finally went to the University of Nairobi, I could have chosen any number of women to be around. I chose those who seemed to have a purpose. Mm-hmm. As I got into my working career, and even when I was at the University of Nairobi, there was an amazing lady who was part of Fanusi. Fanusi is a study center. Is it still there? Let me ask the younger ones. Is Fanusi still there? So Fanusi is run by the Opus Dei, the Catholic in me. But what is important about that is that Agnes Katama, the late, was there, and she always told me this. So this is where it starts. She says, there's no point if you're not top 5 in anything you do. It's pointless. So for me, getting into radio, I had to be top 5. But she says, whatever it is you're doing right now as you're studying in class, as you're doing, you've got to be within at least the top 5, if not the top 10. And that, once it enters your mind, it becomes the way you run yourself. By the time I got into banking, and I was like, if there are bankers in the room, I noticed Citibank was in the room, another mundane work. I couldn't do it. I tried for a year and a half, and then I kind of stumbled into radio. But at the same time, when you're sitting there and you're part of the first independent radio station in Kenya, you're already there at the threshold of we are unique. Therefore, what are you going to do? And when they finally put me on air, I used to do the traffic update, but I did it really well. That's how they started me. I used to say it's 22 minutes past 3 because I used to do the traffic update in the afternoon, and then I'd tell you that Uhuru Highway was busy but moving, no problems, and then I'd let you know that Moy Avenue is looking like this, and but I was good. I had 30 seconds and everybody waited for me to come back. So the truth is, bloom where you're planted, first and foremost. But if you continue to consistently tell yourself, in the room, in the space that I occupy, I will be first 5, it begins to create how you think about everything you do. But the time I was headhunted and went to KISS, I remember Frank Ireri, he was a Citibank then, and he's the one who told me, as you go through this journey, remember your gut is never wrong. And I keep telling people it's the ticklies. It's that feeling you get at the back of your neck. It knows what you should know, but you don't quite know. And then was meeting women who'd say, you're doing this great, but can I suggest? You know? And, you know, it was Gina Din, it was Susan Kithuku who gave me my first board appointment. I was chair. Wow. By the way, I'm now ready to work back again in government. I'd taken a break, I was tired. But that's another thing. You've got to teach yourself early to serve. I think so many of us wait. We're like, no, I don't want to sit on a board right now. It's not. And then what happens is the country and the organization is getting the you that is kind of leaned back and not the you that is ready to go. So let me just tell you about Gina Din and my journey to Harvard. So in 2010, for the Kenyans, we needed to go once again into a referendum to get our new constitution, which we finally got. But because of the elections in 2007, we had to destroy our voters' register and create it anew, because nobody trusted it. And this woman called Gladys Boss Shole comes to the station because she says, I want to see Caroline Mutoko, and I don't talk to government. They'll never have budget. Okay, and I don't talk to people who don't have money. So if you give me a choice between a meeting with EABL and government, I'll take the EABL meeting, I'll take the Coca-Cola meeting. Right, Jemima? Yes. So I was like, government doesn't have money? What? Anyway. We saw her, but I made sure the sales manager was in the room, and she said, we need to register a minimum of 10 million voters. We barely have 3 weeks. So we put together a campaign for her that was nice, that we knew she could not afford. Well, so we thought. She comes in 3 days later, we give her the plan, we don't even finish, and we were ready. We were in the boardroom, we were sorted, and she said, how much? And we told her, and she said, fine. We didn't know that the EU was paying. We thought government was. If we had known, the budget would have, but it was still good. Anyway, we do this thing and we get everything done, and then I'm meeting this woman who's constantly on the go and her energy levels are amazing. But when everything is done, it's like 10 weeks down the line, she comes to me and says, what are you doing with yourself? Because Harvard ain't cheap. But I'd mentioned it to Gina Din, another woman, and she told me, so what's it going to cost? Break it up into months. And I did. And she told me, okay, what do you charge every time you moderate an event? And I told her, and literally for 8 months, she gave me a job every week. I was on high heels. I was so tired. I was so tired. But she, and what I learned from her is that she could have written me a check, but she allowed me to own it.
To earn it.
And to earn it. So I literally went to Harvard on my own ticket. And it was as simple as break it up into months. How much is it? When do you go? Next June? Fine. And then there was John Gumi. And I think sometimes as women, we forget the men who play a pivotal role in the things we do. John, I'd mentioned to him I might be going to school, and then, I went and became a mom, and then I was like, well, I'm not sure. I think I'll go to USIU. He told me, for heaven's sake, woman, could you please stop using your child as a crutch? Wow. And please go to a place where you can become small so you can grow again. Because right now, you're all this in this small fishbowl. And, to come back to what you're saying, what was that like? It was people who constantly prodded me and said, no, you're not doing enough here. And then people like John who told me, you're annoying, because actually the story he told me later is that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf used to work for Citibank. She was actually here. And then they all know her, and then she went away, she went to Harvard, and the next time they saw her, she was running for president. They were like, well. And what I have appreciated constantly is people who come to me and with good intention tell me, it's nice, it could be better, you could do more. So I'm sort of woman who's happy to be stretched. Stretch me.
I like two things that you said. Stop using your child as a crutch. Did that hit some of you? I felt like some people went like this when you said that. And I know that many of us have different things that are crutches to us. It's been my observation that sometimes our faith is a crutch. If God wants it to happen, it will just happen. So can you talk about how does one put themselves in the way of opportunity? Because I think there's a laid backness that sometimes we crutch away as faith. That God will send angels. I will hear 2 trumpet sounds. I will see 4 angels, and then. So some of us need so much reassurance before we take one step. Can you talk about that balance? The balance of waiting to be asked versus presenting yourself as ready.
Okay, and the signaling. That's what it is. You must signal that when you're ready. And actually this goes more to the women over 35. Raise your hands. Women over 35, the majority. The ones under 35 are not playing your game. You must constantly signal, number one, that you want more. You must say it. Because the more you say it, the more another person is going to hear it, and the right person will hear it. So chances are you're going to say, I think I really want a PS position. I think I'm ready for. There are people who will be like, did you hear what Isabel keeps saying? She keeps saying, but there's a right person who will hear it and say, she said what? And they'll find you. You must signal it, you must say it. And the reason I said this for the women over 35 is that younger women don't have a problem saying exactly what they want. They have learned by watching the rest of us that nobody is coming, they must say it. So you must signal it. But you just don't signal it. For me, I was clear and I was signaling, but I had a microphone, 10 million people listening every morning. But when I went back to school, I didn't play games. I told everybody I was in Harvard. I didn't play. Because what was I saying? There's more to me than the person who you listen to for 4 hours every morning. Okay? And for when I graduated, the right people knew. And the minute I did, all my board appointments came through. Okay, you must signal it and you must amplify it, okay? But also, you have to be in the right rooms. And sometimes, one of the things I wrote is destiny is choice, not chance. And you said this when you stood up. You said you could have done something else with your Saturday morning. You chose to be here. You chose to be here. And you're constantly going to keep choosing to be in the rooms where the conversations edify what it is you want for your future self. The other thing you're going to do, okay, I'm going to add homework here, is that you're going to write a letter to your future self. Write it today, open it exactly a year from today. Just write it, and write it as it has happened. Mm-hmm. Dear Caroline, it is now the 6th of 2026. You have gotten, you are doing, you must write it. Because sometimes you're scared. You don't want to say, I want. Really, half the problem is that. Yeah. You don't want to say it because you're afraid Yawa is going to say, oh, who does she think she is? Well, as the young ones in the room always say, she's exactly who she thinks she is. You are exactly who you think you are. You are all that. And you need to stop acting like, I don't want to, You must signal it, you must prepare for it, you must vocalize that you're going after it, because the angels she's talking about, they step up. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. When the student is ready, the opportunity presents. but you must say it, you must signal it, you must live it. You must.
I love that. There's another thing that you said in the story of going to Harvard that I think I'd love for you to talk about a bit. I think from my work with women leaders over the past 15 years, I realize that sometimes we know we need more. We need to up-level, upskill, move to the next level. But it appears that the woman that you want to become will cost you.
Oh, yeah.
So I know you've talked about reputational cost in your first 15 minutes. Can you talk now a little bit more about financial costs? Because the cost of going to Harvard, the cost of maybe investing in a different type of wardrobe or a different group of friends, or, you know, I think that some people are on a chokehold. I want to do it, but my uncle's brother's sister's son needs to go to school. And so I find, and this is mostly my view formed from West Africa,
Okay.
so maybe you can speak to this context a bit more, but I find that a lot of us are overextended because we want to be nice, good girls, and some of it is informed by our faith perspectives, and some of it is also, maybe also, a crutch. So can you talk about the investment piece and how you, as a woman who's risen and is still rising, how do you make your judgment calls about what's worth your time and what's worth your money?
Okay. That's great, and I'm going to start here. I'm a firstborn daughter, a first granddaughter to a firstborn son. So when it comes to an overextended African woman, I am the poster child. And the reason I wanted to start there is that when it comes to the fact that everybody is on your case, and then you keep thinking, I can't because, I just want to say, I need you to choose yourself. Choose you. A happier you is great for everybody, and anybody who's not happy with a happier you should not be in your space. So once again, as a firstborn daughter, I need to say this, choose you. I'll give you an example and then tell you about cost. A couple of years ago, I mean, by the time I got the job at KISS 100, I was earning more than my mother ever earned. And I remember, you know, I picked up university fees for my younger brother and my younger sister, as we do. And then finally got to a place where I had bought an apartment, but the apartment was not all that. Then I told my mom, I think I want to buy a house. And you know what my mother told me? My mother told me, tie up your money. Your siblings will always look at you and feel that you have too much money, and they'll always be on your case. Tie it up. One thing I've always had working for me is my mother was 100% in my corner. 100% in my corner. Show me, tie up your money. How much is the house going to cost? I told her 19.5 million. She said, good, tie up your money. They're not going to be happy. And I remember my own siblings were very much like, why is she building such a big house? What does she need it for? She's not married. She does not have children. Choose you. Choose you. Let's start there. You've got to choose your dreams, because every time, I tell you this without a doubt, when you don't buy the car you want, you don't go on the holiday you want, you don't choose the career you want, you will be the woman in traffic behind the car that you wish you had bought, hating that woman who did that thing. Okay, so choose you. Choose your dreams. Is it going to cost you? Yes. But, you know, sometimes I hear women saying things like, you know, I really wanted to do my master's, but you know, next year I'm going to be 33. Whether you do your master's or not, you'll be 33 next year. Okay. And then we've got this idea that we don't have the money. And if you take nothing from my narrative with Gina Din, she said, break it up. How much do you need every week, every month? The problem is, and I remember right now, if you want to go and do the same course I did in Harvard, it costs an arm and a leg, because I was in Harvard in 2012. But at the time, it was the equivalent, it was actually exactly 1.8 million. But I had a gratuity in my contract, so I asked for the gratuity to be paid straight. To the campus, and then there was a money I got from doing work with Gina Din, and then I asked the board to give me their air miles. Do you understand? You break it up. I mean, literally, I went back and forth to Boston purely on air miles. Wow. Yeah, my chairman gave me his air miles, my vice chairman, my CEO, William Pike, the board gave me their air miles and celebrated me. Here's the other thing. At the time, I had been told, another thing for you to consider, I had been told that the Ford Foundation supports education for women. They have a grant. And actually, one of the things they do when it comes to education is that they don't ask for the money back. Because when you're an African woman, you'll be amazed how many things are available for you. You just don't look for them. And Dr. Willie Mutunga had just left the Ford Foundation because he was ready to be Chief Justice. He told me, no, this is the person you need to speak to, but the money is available. Oh, by the way the world works is American NGOs support American, yes. So if I was going to university in Oxford, the Ford Foundation might not have given me the money, but because it was Harvard, they'd have paid it directly. But I came at the end of their financial year, so I never got the money. But they would have paid it directly. So this thing you tell yourself, I don't have the money, the question is, who has it? And why will they not give it to you? Please stop doing that to yourself, acting like I can't have that. You can. Something else I want you to write down. You can do hard things. You can do hard things. And what you're seeking is seeking you. Without a doubt. What you're seeking is seeking you. You will find the money, the time. That's the other thing we talk about. I don't have the time. I say this, and if you heard me say this before, forgive me, but I need to repeat it. If it doesn't make me happy, if it doesn't make me better, and if it doesn't make me money, I don't make time for it. You create your own narrative. That is mine. I'm here today because it makes me happy, but also it makes me better. Every time I teach, I learn again. If it doesn't make me happy, if it doesn't make me better, it doesn't make me money, I don't make time for it. And I think women are overstretched because you belong to a Bible study, you belong to what, and then you've got, I don't know, your sisters, and then there's your girlfriends who have got this, and then you've got choir practice, and no. I need you, oh God, one word I want every woman to learn is no. No. And it's a complete sentence, because the other thing we do as women is that now we want to tell you why no. No. And you've got to learn to articulate your non-negotiables, your irreducible minimums.
So Caroline, I'm curious whether you have advice around vision casting, vision setting. I like what you said about letter to your future self. But are you the kind of person who is an advocate of have a vision for the next 5 years, for example, or a picture of where you want to go? Do you vision board? Like, what's been your tactical practice?
I vision board and I write letters to myself. I have summits with myself as well. But I vision board. And I vision board based on where are you going, Caroline? So, banking didn't work. Radio. When I got into radio, back in the day, everybody's like, what is she doing on radio? She was in a bank. I mean, that is supposed to be a great job. Right, Mercy? Those days. You work in a bank. It is wonderful. And then I leave the bank and I intern at this radio station for 6 months. And then I get my offer letter. My offer letter is double what I was making at the bank. So I learned, number one, I've got to go into unconventional spaces, okay? Because by the time I was headhunted out of remember, the very people were like, what is she doing on radio? Were the same ones when I left Capital were like, where is she going? I'm also very clear that I listen to myself. I do. Because your gut knows what it knows. You know what you know. It's just always sitting there. Women are consensus builders people. Let's have a meeting and have consensus with 300 people before we make the decision that is good for me. So when I went to KISS, I was headhunted. It's horrible when you negotiate your salary when you're 24, because I was on 90,000 shillings, and when they asked what I wanted, I just doubled it. And then when I finished my probational period, they told me, here's your real pay, which was about 3 times that much. But it's constantly telling myself, okay, Caroline, this journey has been great. Now, you never asked me why I went to Harvard. I was 37 and I knew that at 40, I was not going to wake up and say, 22 minutes past 7, this is Kiss 100. Coming up next is Rihanna. I was not going to backhand Rihanna when I was 40. I was not. But remember, and this is something that only happens to women, is that you're sitting there and everybody loves the job you have, the prominence you have, the pay you have, so where are you going? You've got the gig. But I knew I did not want to be 40 and saying, you know, that was Beyonce.
Can we go deeper here? Because my next question to you really was this: how do you know you're ready for a move? Because oftentimes, some of these women sitting on these tables today, in their current circles, they
They're
are
ready.
the bomb.
No.
They are the ish. Their families are proud of them. And there's a still small voice saying there could be more. And so is it just my imagination, or could I really get at it? How do you determine, like, it's time? So was it your
When it won't
internal?
leave you alone. When it won't leave you alone, it just won't leave you alone, then it's the one. Yeah, the one that wakes you up at 2 a.m. and then it bothers you and then you keep seeing it everywhere, that one. The one that won't leave you alone, that's the one. And you know it. You're always trying to push it away and it keeps coming back.
So were you hearing that before they come along and suggest Harvard?
Yes.
Okay.
I knew I did not want to be on air at 40. I did not know what. Then Gladys comes along and says, you need to go back to school. And then Gina says it's about time. Then John Gumi tells me, for heaven's sake, woman, could you please leave? And then it becomes clear that I got to do it. But let me tell you the magic. The magic was being in class. And the way Harvard works is that they give you a small advisory board. Because these are people who are not in your own industry, who get to also, you write your executive challenge, because they will ask you why you're here. And I remember when I got my advisory board, it was women. And the woman who sat where you were sitting was the vice president of the Central Bank of Turkey. And then the woman who sat here was the Vice President Roche. And then the lady who was across from me was the FBI Bureau Chief Chicago. Now, you're in that room, you're like, okay, why am I here? And then you realize you have to up your own game. And remember, what happens is that your executive challenge is given to them, and then you also have theirs, and every morning before breakfast we have to meet and unpack each other. How are you unpacking the Vice President of the Central Bank of Turkey? You know? But this is and you've got to also learn to be still. You've got to be still, because you hear your own thoughts and you hear what needs to come to you, and then you seek it, and then it comes to you. But it's in you, and it won't let you go. I'll bet if I asked you, what made you decide to start leading ladies? I'm sure it bugged you for years.
3 years.
Until you just had to do it. And probably your first meeting had 5 women, 10?
4.
Yeah. But it won't let you go. Yeah. And that's how you know. I mean, for me, I knew I had to get off air. I knew I wanted C-suite credentials. I knew that I needed to get onto digital, even when these very people, the Kenyans in here, they're like, what is she doing on YouTube? But digital was next, I knew, because I had been to Harvard. I knew. The future's already here. It's not evenly distributed. Whatever the future is, it's already here. It's just not evenly distributed. I knew, even as now I'm beginning to exit out of digital. Oh, by the way, I'm opening a school. I'm just letting you guys know now.
That was actually my final question to you. Where are you headed to next, and why?
Okay, a school. Right now, I'm being smart about money, so it's ages 3 to 7, but very crucial. I have always, and looking at my own children, I understand that inception ages, early learning is crucial in creating the generation of Africans I want to see. You know, my 7-year-old son, I've always told people he's 7 going on 35. Well, first and foremost, he also listens to Neil Diamond, so that's a problem. And I see my daughter, and I look at them and I realize, you're the outliers because of the education I could afford to give you. But why should it be that way? So I'm not building a school in Nairobi. My school is in Konza. It's 10 minutes from the Konza Technopolis. I broke ground 20 days ago. I'm broke, very. So buy me lunch. And it's because I'm not just creating a school, because there's a revenue element here, but it's a kindergarten and learning center. I want to train teachers because there's demands we have of what this continent can do, but if we don't fix the learning and the education, I mean, I remember just almost yelling at my daughter's teachers last year, and I was like, why are they doing Gandhi? There is something else they should be studying, and you're going to get very tired of me in the next couple of years because I want to rip the education system and what we're teaching in Africa and in Kenya apart and rebuild it. I'm not just going to tear it down, I want to rebuild it. Because we're not preparing our own children to take over these titanium mines, and we talk about what's happening in Congo and here and there and everywhere, and yet there's still people coming onto this continent and taking. But unless we prepare a generation that can, but who's going to do it if we don't? Who's going to do it if we don't? So every time I ask myself, so how can things be better? I look at my own kids and I'll realize I might be paying a pretty penny for where you go to school, but a lot of how you think, who you are, has a lot to do with the space you sit in. And then special needs children are a big part of the institution I'm building. Once again, in Nairobi, you probably have space for children who've got special needs, but it costs an arm and a leg. But what happens in rural Africa and rural Kenya? What happens then? Because even if you have a child who's neurodivergent, you want them to have the school experience. You don't want to be told, well, I think you need to do home learning for them. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. So that for me is crucial.
So education is your next frontier.
It's my next frontier.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's been brilliant, many of the things you've shared. I do want to take 2 questions from the audience. If there's a burning question, you can raise your hand quickly, and we'll share those questions with Caroline before we close out this sit down. Are there any questions?
Men, generally. I've been in spaces. I'm currently chief of staff at APA Insurance, and one of the things it's very at the top. It's predominantly men, and you find that they speak very proudly, strongly about themselves. And as ladies, we are taught to be a bit humble, and and I know there is a space for speaking about and proudly about and boldly about your achievements. And my question is, could you let us know, because I know amongst us we have wonderful potential amongst us, and there's a lot more that we can achieve, but we need that boldness to be able to speak about our achievements with a sense of courage and without feeling intimidated. I think one other thing I've observed, men tend to support themselves very well, but on our side, perhaps we even tear down more than we build ourselves. So what could you say about that space? Because even when you're applying for jobs, you kind of tend to be a bit more timid, etc.
Just to hear a few thoughts about how to balance the feminine side of you, because I think that there is, I'm also in that space of being over 50, and I sometimes see the younger ones almost thinking that strength is, as a woman, is becoming another version of a man. In my experience, I heard a few ladies saying people underestimate them or they never see them coming, which I think there's a lot of strength in there. But can you speak a little bit about how to balance that bit, remaining feminine, leaning into the strength that are in you without necessarily wanting to become a man, because you can't?
It's so powerful hearing from you. And I'm thinking I tend to sometimes be an background engine person. And I also see the power in seeing how things move because I'm sort of in the back end. Having been a voice, that people hear, you are looking at the countries hearing about your voice, but not necessarily seeing you. How do you navigate the prominence in the background? Because you said something about prominence is not always being in the spotlight. I tend to enjoy actually being an engine. But then how do you navigate the prominence and also the weight of the responsibility that comes, but still being in the areas that are so critical to everything being moved? Yeah.
So I would love to hear more in terms of like, what is it that you feel is lacking? And, even like, what are the areas in which you are looking for partnerships in? Because it's something that I find, at least I have been looking for partners to work with on, and I would love to actually be able to find partnerships in those areas.
Number one, and I can only speak about myself, I've always walked into a room as a woman. I'm unapologetically female.
What does that mean practically?
Practically, Jemima would tell you, I've never worn trousers to work. I've nothing against pants. But because, by and large, between Pete, Patrick, Martin, Robert, anytime I was in a senior management meeting, I was the only female in the room. So I still walk into the room as a woman. A powerful woman, a smart woman, but a woman. And the reason I'm saying both your questions can be answered the same way is that I've never let go of the fact that I'm a girl. But this is also very important. I do not serve tea at the meeting. It's very important you hear me say this, okay? They took turns for who would serve me coffee. My fellow senior managers, but my power is in who I am. The men in the room don't want another man or a quasi-man, because you're never going to be one of them, and the only reason you are valuable is because you're you, okay? So first and foremost, I've always come as a woman. It doesn't matter where I go. I'm here, I'm female, and I'm still female to a point where I needed to rise when I enter the room. A proper gentleman knows what to do. The other thing I need to do is please get away from this thing of you don't self-promote. Oh God, let one man literally clip a paper together with a stapler, ta-ta-ta. We'll hear about it. But for some reason, women, I don't know who has told you, and that's why I wanted to look for the women over 35. The women who are under 35 stop playing that game. And they learned from us. They learned not to shy away from saying, I did that. In fact, I love the way they do it. They just say, I did a thing. I did a thing. I did a thing. You can celebrate yourself, and please do. And you need to be able, like what Howard did for us, Yawa did for us this morning. She made you talk about you. And it wasn't hard. So why is it you don't do it more often? I meet you at cocktails, and when I ask you, what do you do? Oh, the women in business are the worst. They're like, I run a small business. You don't tell us I'm a change agent for this. I'm great at building and designing amazing, institutions. You don't say that. And I need you to find the words, 5 of them, that constantly define you and use them, okay? I always tell people, I spark conversations. I change how people think and act, okay? The other thing is I want you to document you. You don't come from the world Yawa came from. She didn't have LinkedIn. How was she telling the story God knows how many years ago? Today, you can literally celebrate yourself on your own platform. And it's there, and we can Google you, and the search engine will find you. Document you. And then, something you said about applying for jobs. It is a fact, it's documented, that women will only apply for jobs where they meet at least 80 to 100% of the criteria.
The average man will apply when he meets 50. Hiyo ingine atapanga akienda. Let me translate. The other 50, he'll figure it out as we go along. But he will apply even if he has 50% of the credentials. But once again, your power is actually in being a woman, completely. And I'm just, going back to her. Do not come to any table, to any engagement as anything but. That's your superpower, that you are a woman. And then it's your superpower that you're a woman who's smart, and your superpower that you're a woman who's smart and articulate. But your superpower, the baseline, is that you're a woman. Stop letting that go. Prominence in the background, document you. I'm not telling you have, but please, find a LinkedIn page and constantly document what you do. Because there are people who are always looking for engine mechanics. There is a person in the spotlight who literally has got that huge spotlight, who's saying, I need a person. Like, one of the things that's always been important for me, and when I left Radio Africa, I had to recreate her. Rachel was always my engine. I've got Abby now, and Abby, let me tell you, she will tell me, what was that I heard you doing on the phone? You do know you have a swimming gala next Thursday. Yeah, because she will hear a conversation I'm having, it's like, no, that one you're not doing. Yes. But please document you, because there's somebody looking for you. And the other thing is, media you. Document you, media you. Each one of you, whether you've got 20 people who follow you, 200, 100, you own a small media house. You're not looking for anybody anymore to tell your story. You can tell it yourself. And then, to what she was asking about education, critical thinking versus rote learning. Kenya and Africa has been told that they need to regurgitate what you were given by the teacher. What part of Ghana did you go to school in? I'm sure you had to know your bits and pieces. What we're not teaching our children to do is question. Because the way education works in a lot of Kenya is, you stand up, you say your name, and you say again what the teacher said. And then you sit down, and you keep your head down, and you don't ask questions. Critical thinking is the one thing, because, and the way colonialism worked on all of us, doesn't matter where you come from, it taught us that we shouldn't question. And education produces three types of people. 80% are people who take instructions. Okay? 80% of our education system is geared towards people who take instructions. The another 10% are people who can be trusted to watch over the people taking instructions. And only about 10% of the continent has people who question why and then create something. And because we are net importers of everything, because we've never asked, can we make that thing? Can we do that thing? We have been made to understand that you shouldn't. You can't. Look at the way we look at your neighbor in Burkina Faso. It's like, how dare he? But my dream is to create a few more of him. My dream is to create a few more of him. The more of that we have, that begins to question, can we, can I, do we have the skills? And we do. My mother always asks me when I say something can't be done, she says, and that person has 2 heads. So they have 1 head, 2 hands and 2 legs like you. So how come they can do it and you can't? So for me, it's critical thinking versus rote learning. Because the minute we begin to ask ourselves, how can this be done? We will do it. But so long as we think it can only come from elsewhere, we'll be stuck where we are. And this continent is a final frontier. They're all coming. They're all coming. And if we're not careful, and this is the thing, my great-grandfather, your great-grandfather could have said, we didn't know how to read and write, and, closed our eyes to pray, and we opened our eyes, they're taken everything. What's going to be my excuse? What's mine? Colonialism is coming back, but it's in the form of grants and infrastructure and God knows what else, and we're not playing.
Wow. Can you help me celebrate this conversation? This conversation has been delicious, so thank you for just bringing it. Some of the key things that you said that really resonated with me is this idea of signaling and saying. I really love that. That signal that you're ready, be willing to say it, send letters to yourself, Don't be afraid to put it on a vision and stick with it. Have the humility to let people tell you what you could do differently. Be willing to be among the top 5 or nothing else. I really like that. And be willing to connect with others and pass a baton, because prominence isn't just a singular endeavor. Caroline, thank you so much. It's been such a treat having you here today. I know you can't be with us for the rest of the day, so we will do photos with you right now. If I can invite all of my speakers to this. Oh, I think Mercy is missing. A few people are missing from the table, but we did want to do it. Okay, great. So can you help me celebrate her as we walk off the table, or walk off the stage, right? Yes.